Okay, so you won't believe the latest saga unfolding with Prince Andrew. Honestly, this guy's audacity knows no bounds. We're talking about a man who, let's be blunt, is deeply embroiled in scandal, and yet he's out here making demands like he's still some beloved national treasure. The sheer entitlement is staggering. The gist of it is this. He's finally, kicking and screaming, I imagine, being forced to move out of Royal Lodge. January 31st is the drop-dead date, apparently. Now, you'd think someone in his position would be keeping his head down, right? Trying to rehabilitate his image, maybe do some quiet charity work, something, anything, to show a bit of contrition. But no. Andrew, in true Andrew fashion, is reportedly treating this whole thing like a real estate negotiation, complete with a list of demands that would make a Saudi prince blush. We're talking about a substantial 6 or 7 bedroom house on the Sandringham estate. Not a quaint little cottage, mind you. He wants space, privacy, enough room to swing a cat, or, host dignitaries if anyone was still willing to be seen with him. And the staff. He's apparently insisting on a full complement. Cook, gardener, housekeeper, driver, and even his police security. Basically, he wants a fully staffed miniature palace where he doesn't have to lift a finger. The quote that really got me was from a friend of his who told the royalist that Andrew expects to be treated fairly because he's giving up the lease on one of England's finest houses. Seriously? Fairly? This isn't about fairness. It's about consequences. It's about a man who's been accused of some truly awful things, and instead of facing the music, he's playing the victim card. This isn't some innocent dude being unfairly evicted. This is a guy trying to maintain a lavish lifestyle while the walls close in on him. It's like he genuinely believes he's entitled to this level of comfort, regardless of his actions. It's a mindset that's been cultivated over decades of privilege and protection, and it's clearly not something he's willing to give up easily. Another source, also conveniently anonymous, claims that Andrew has done exactly what has been asked of him and simply wants to be left alone, right? Because being asked to step back from royal duties is exactly the same as being held accountable for your alleged actions. It's the same old song and dance, deflect, deny, and demand. The whole thing is just infuriating. It highlights the disconnect between the royal family and the rest of us. While ordinary people are struggling to make ends meet, Andrew's out here haggling over the size of his new mansion and the number of servants he's entitled to. It's a slap in the face to anyone who's ever had to work hard for what they have. And let's not forget the context here. We're talking about Virginia Giuffre's allegations, the lawsuit, the settlement, all of it swirling around Andrew like a toxic cloud. He can try to spin it however he wants, but the stench of scandal is undeniable. It's why he's been ostracized, why he's been stripped of his titles, and why he's being forced to move out of Royal Lodge. Okay, I'm ready for part 2. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into this Royal Lodge situation, because it's not just about Andrew's ego, it's also about cold, hard cash. For years, that lease on Royal Lodge was like Andrew's golden ticket. It was a long-term agreement, set to run until 2078, and it essentially gave him rent-free accommodation in a pretty swanky pad. The big question was always what would happen if he surrendered it early. Would he get a hefty payout? Would he walk away a multimillionaire? Well, according to a report presented to the Crown Estate, the answer is a resounding no. Turns out, Royal Lodge is in pretty rough shape. We're talking about extensive repairs, the kind of work you'd expect on a massive old house that's been neglected for years. Apparently, maintenance was deferred, which is just a fancy way of saying they didn't bother fixing things when they broke. And now, the chickens have come home to roost. The Crown Estate is basically saying that the cost of these repairs is so substantial that it cancels out any compensation Andrew might have received for surrendering the lease early. Ouch. They calculated that he could have walked away with almost £500,000 if the house was in good condition. But because it's a fixer-upper nightmare, that money's gone. Poof. This explains a lot about why Andrew's been clinging to Royal Lodge like a life raft. It wasn't just about the sentimental value or the prestige, it was about the money. That lease was a valuable asset, and he wasn't about to give it up without a fight. But now that the value's been wiped out by the dilapidations, his bargaining power has taken a major hit. He's basically lost his leverage. And then there's Sarah Ferguson, Fergie. Apparently, she won't be joining Andrew on the Sandringham estate. She's planning to find her own place near Windsor, which marks the end of their unconventional living arrangement. They've been living together, on and off, for decades, even after their divorce. It's always been a bit of a head-scratcher, but it seemed to work for them. So why the change now? Well, it could be that the palace is finally drawing a line in the sand. Maybe they're tired of enabling their codependent lifestyle and want to create some distance between Andrew and the rest of the family. It's a symbolic move, and it suggests that they're trying to exert more control over the situation. The interesting thing is that Andrew apparently doesn't see himself as someone who should accept a humble property. He still expects a certain level of luxury, even after everything that's happened. It's like he's living in a parallel universe where his scandals haven't changed anything, and the fact that he's allegedly demanding a fully staffed household just reinforces that sense of entitlement. Who's going to pay for all of that? The taxpayer? The king? It's a question that needs to be answered. The king's in a tough spot here. He's facing criticism for being too lenient with Andrew, but he also wants to avoid a public showdown. Giving Andrew a large home on the Sandringham estate might be seen as a way to keep the peace, but it's unlikely to be a popular decision. The palace is clearly trying to manage this situation as quietly as possible, but the press keeps digging up more details. Okay, I'm ready for part 3. Alright, so let's talk about Andrew's negotiating tactics, because this is where things get really interesting. Apparently, he's known for being incredibly meticulous when it comes to money. People who've worked with him have described long discussions about costs, contracts, and the fine print. He's the kind of guy who'll haggle over every last detail, even when it seems petty or insignificant. So, the fact that he's treating this relocation as a negotiation shouldn't surprise anyone. It's entirely in character. He sees it as a business transaction, a deal to be made, rather than a matter of personal responsibility or public perception. He's trying to extract the best possible outcome for himself, regardless of the circumstances. One former staff member even said that Andrew believes he can argue anything and will keep pushing until the other side gives in. It's a classic power play, and it's one that he's used for years. He's betting that the palace will eventually cave in to his demands, just to avoid a bigger mess. But here's the thing. Andrew's no longer in a position of power. He's been stripped of his titles, his reputation is in tatters, and he's facing increasing scrutiny. He's lost his leverage, and yet he's still acting like he's calling the shots. It's a testament to his sheer entitlement and his unwavering belief in his own importance, and that's what makes this whole situation so frustrating. It's not just about the money or the property, it's about the principle. It's about a man who's been accused of serious wrongdoing continuing to act like he's above the law. It's about a system that seems to protect the privileged, even when they've abused their power. The palace is walking a tightrope. They want to keep the peace, but they also need to be seen as taking action. They can't afford to be perceived as enabling Andrew's behavior, but they also don't want to create a public spectacle. It's a delicate balancing act, and it's one that could have serious repercussions for the monarchy. Ultimately, this saga is a reflection of the complex and often contradictory nature of the royal family. They're expected to uphold tradition and maintain a sense of decorum, but they're also subject to intense public scrutiny. They're supposed to be above politics, but they're constantly navigating the political landscape, and they're expected to be role models, even when they're struggling to live up to those expectations. So, what happens next? Well, Andrew has until the end of January to leave Royal Lodge. That date seems fixed, but what comes after that is still up in the air. Will he get the luxury home he's demanding? Will the palace cave in to his requests? Or will he be forced to accept a more modest property? It's a question that's being closely watched by the public, the press, and the royal family themselves. And the answer will say a lot about the future of Prince Andrew and the monarchy as a whole. I, for one, will be watching closely. What do you think? Should he get what he wants? Or should he finally face some real consequences? It's time for these questions to be asked. Excellent work. That's exactly the kind of conversational, opinionated style I was looking for. The pacing and detail are perfect. Thank you. Great, thanks. Okay, so the other thing that's just wild about all this is the sheer hypocrisy of it all. I mean, we're constantly being told to tighten our belts, to be mindful of our carbon footprint, to make sacrifices for the greater good. And then you've got this guy who's basically living in a gilded cage, demanding even more luxury at public expense. It's enough to make your blood boil. And it's not like he's some innocent victim here. Let's not forget why he's in this mess in the first place. We're talking about serious allegations of sexual abuse, allegations that he's consistently denied but has never really put to rest. He paid off Virginia Giuffre, sure, but that doesn't exactly scream innocence, does it? It screams, I'm rich, and I can make this go away. The whole Epstein connection is just so deeply disturbing. The fact that Andrew was hanging out with a convicted sex offender, flying on his private jet, staying at his mansion, it's just beyond the pale. And his explanation that it was all just a convenient place to stay? Come on! Who says that? It's insulting to our intelligence. And the royal family's response has been so weak. They've stripped him of his titles, sure, but they've also allowed him to maintain a lavish lifestyle, protected him from the full consequences of his actions, and basically treated him with kid gloves. It's like they're more concerned about protecting the institution of the monarchy than they are about holding him accountable. I get that they're trying to avoid a scandal, but their silence is deafening. It sends a message that they're willing to overlook serious allegations of abuse in order to maintain their image. And that's just not acceptable. The thing is, this isn't just about Andrew. It's about the entire system of privilege and entitlement that allows people like him to get away with anything. It's about the way the wealthy and powerful are able to manipulate the system to their advantage, while ordinary people are left to pick up the pieces. And it's about the erosion of trust in our institutions. When people see that the rules don't apply to everyone, they lose faith in the system. They start to believe that the game is rigged, that there's no point in playing by the rules. Look, I'm not saying that Andrew should be thrown in jail, but I am saying that he needs to face some real consequences for his actions. He needs to be held accountable for the harm he's caused, and the royal family needs to step up and show that they're serious about addressing this issue. They need to be transparent about the investigation into Andrew's conduct. They need to cooperate with law enforcement, and they need to make it clear that they will not tolerate any form of abuse. Otherwise, this whole thing is just going to fester. It's going to continue to erode trust in the monarchy, and it's going to send a message that the privileged are above the law. And that's just not a message that we can afford to send. We need to hold our leaders accountable. We need to demand justice for the victims of abuse. And we need to create a system where everyone is treated equally under the law. It's a tall order, I know, but it's a fight worth fighting. Because if we don't, we're just going to end up with more Andrews, more Epsteins, and more scandals that undermine our faith in the system. And nobody wants that. It's time for some serious change, and it's time for the royal family to lead the way. Okay, so let's get real about who's footing the bill for all this. We're talking about a potentially massive expense, and you gotta wonder where the money's coming from. Is it the Duchy of Lancaster, which is basically the king's private income? Is it the Crown Estate, which is technically public money, even though the royals get a cut? Or is it just going to be swept under the rug, with some vague explanation about private funds? Because here's the thing. We, the public, have a right to know. We're constantly being asked to pay more taxes, to accept cuts to public services, and to make sacrifices for the good of the country. And then we see this guy who's already incredibly wealthy, demanding even more handouts. It just doesn't sit right. And the political implications are huge. The monarchy is already facing a crisis of legitimacy. Younger generations are questioning its relevance, its cost, and its connection to the real world. And scandals like this just fuel the fire. They reinforce the perception that the royals are out of touch, entitled, and unaccountable. You know, the whole never complain, never explain mantra, it just doesn't cut it anymore. People want transparency, they want honesty, and they want to see that the royals are actually earning their keep. And I'm not saying that the monarchy should be abolished, but I am saying that it needs to modernize. It needs to become more accountable, more transparent, and more responsive to the needs of the people. They've got to ditch the old-fashioned PR tactics, the carefully crafted image, and the constant attempts to control the narrative. People see right through that stuff. They want authenticity. They want to see the real people behind the titles and the tiaras. And that means addressing the Andrew situation head on. It means being honest about his conduct, holding him accountable for his actions, and making it clear that they won't tolerate any form of abuse. It also means rethinking the whole system of royal privilege. Why should Andrew be entitled to a luxury home and a fully staffed household just because he was born into the right family? It's an outdated concept, and it's one that needs to be challenged. Look, I get that the royal family is a complex and sensitive issue, but it's also a vital part of our national identity. And if we want it to survive, we need to be willing to have honest conversations about its future. We need to ask tough questions, challenge outdated assumptions, and demand accountability from those in power. And that starts with Andrew. He's become a symbol of everything that's wrong with the monarchy, the entitlement, the privilege, and the lack of accountability. So, the palace's next move is critical. Are they going to continue to protect him, to enable his behavior, and to sweep his scandals under the rug? Or are they going to finally take a stand and show that they're serious about reform? The future of the monarchy may depend on it. And honestly, the way they handle this will tell us everything we need to know about